Sri Gurubhyo Namaha, and welcome to the Sri Vidya Temple's online class in chanting. We're currently doing a series of classes on Puja mantras and Homa mantras. And for the current class, we're going to do some of the specific shlokas or Veda mantras that we typically do during Devi Puja at the temple. Some of them are very common, like for the Abhishekam, and some are not as common. So I'll start with the Ganapati prayer. Om Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnan Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vikhnopashantaye. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is a Dhyanashloka for Sri Lalita Devi, or you could also say for Kamakshi Devi. And this is something that we commonly do in the temple. Okay. So I think normally in the temple, when we do this one, people who like to sing will sing it in a very beautiful way, but that's not something that most of us can do if we're not also a singer. So I just picked a really simple melody that's pretty similar to what we use for some of the shlokas in Devi Mahatmyam. So I'm just going to chant this one time and then we'll start with the practice. Chaturbhuje Chandrakala se kuchonnate Kunkumaragashorni Pundrekshupashankushapushpabarnahaste Namaste Jagadekamataha. So hopefully that sounds a little bit familiar in terms of the melody. So is there anyone who would like to start us off repeating the lines? Okay, Charu Auntie. Chaturbhuje Chandra.
Chaturbhuje Chandrakala. Chaturbhuje Chandrakala.
Kalavatam se.
Kalavatam se. Kalavatam se.
Chaturbhuje Chandrakalavatam se.
Chaturbhuje Chandrakalavatam se. Chaturbhuje Chandrakalavatam se.
Good. And notice here in this line, bhu in Chaturbhuje, that bhu is Mahaprana. Kuchonnate kunkuma.
Kuchonnate kunkuma. Kuchonnate kunkuma.
Good. I could hear the holding on kuchonnate. Kuchonnate, there's holding with the double na. Ragashorne.
Ragashorne. Ragashorne.
Kuchonnate kunkuma ragashorne.
Kuchonnate kunkuma ragashorne. Kuchonnate kunkuma ragashorne.
Let's try the whole line. Chaturbhuje Chandrakalavatam se kuchonnate kunkuma ragashorne.
Chaturbhuje Chandrakalavatam se kuchonnate kunkuma ragashorne. चतुर्भुजे चन्द्रकलावतंसे कुचोन्नते कुङ्कुमरागशोणे.
Very good. Let's do the next line. Pundrekshupashankusha.
पुण्ड्रेक्षुपाशाङ्कुश पुण्ड्रेक्षुपाशाङ्कुश
Pushpabarna.
पुष्पबाण पुष्पबाण
Pundrekshupashankusha pushpabarna.
पुण्ड्रेक्षुपाशाङ्कुश पुष्पबाण पुण्ड्रेक्षुपाशाङ्कुश पुष्पबाण.
Good. And everyone notice the holding on ekshu, pundrekshu, and also ankusha, pashankusha. Okay, there's holding after dirgha there. Next part. Haste namaste.
हस्ते नमस्ते हस्ते नमस्ते
Jagadekamaataha.
जगदेकमातः जगदेकमातः
Haste namaste jagadekamaataha.
हस्ते नमस्ते जगदेकमातः हस्ते नमस्ते जगदेकमातः.
Good. Now, when we link it together, notice how the varna and then it comes to the middle of the line. So that's like a sort of a switch over in the melody. And then you have haste. So this is all one name. Pundrekshupasankushapushpabarna haste. But because the break in the line is coming, we don't want to have a pause after barna. So barna ends in hrasva, so there's no like extra pause there. So just keep an eye out for that. Pundrekshupasankushapushpabarna haste namaste jagadekamaataha.
पुण्ड्रेक्षुपाशाङ्कुशपुष्पबाणहस्ते नमस्ते जगदेकमातः पुण्ड्रेक्षुपाशाङ्कुशपुष्पबाणहस्ते नमस्ते जगदेकमातः.
Good. So what I'll do is I'm going to chant each line 4 times, and you can all practice by chanting along. Chaturbhuje chandrakalavatamse kuchonnate kumkumaragashone. Chaturbhuje chandrakalavatamse kuchonnate kumkumaragashone. Chaturbhuje chandrakalavatamse kuchonnate kumkumaragashone. Chaturbhuje chandrakalavatamse kuchonnate kumkumaragashone. Pundrekshupasankushapushpabarna haste namaste jagadekamaataha. Pundrekshupasankushapushpabarna haste namaste jagadekamaataha. Pundrekshupasankushapushpabarna haste namaste jagadekamaataha. Pundrikshupasankushapushpabarnahaste namaste Jagadekamataha. Okay, so everything clear in that shloka? Okay. All right. So next we're going to get into the
One
Abhishek.
question.
Yes.
Yeah, this Dhyanashloka, can you use it for any time, or it has to be like before, let us say I start Kadgamala Stotram or Lalita Sahasranamam, can I use this Dhyanashloka? Is it universal or it is only for a particular purpose?
So typically when we're doing a puja, it's like extended meditation on a particular form of the divine, of God. And we're working on through the mantra that we're chanting and also the Dhyanashloka and the inner visualization of what we're doing. We're setting up like a connection, a link with a particular form of God. So the Dhyanashloka is important, not just for chanting it, but for the inner visualizing of that form of divinity. So that's why a Dhyanashloka always describes the physical form. So my advice is to use a Dhyanashloka that is as close to that form that you're worshiping as possible. So if you look in this one, it's talking about Chaturbhuje, four arms or four shoulders, Chandrakala. So the Chandrakala, is on the forehead, like we see with Lalitambika or Kamakshi Devi, Mahatripura Sundari. Kunkumaraga Shone, like she's wearing kumkumam. And then Pundrekshu Pashankusha Pushpa Barna Haste. So this is describing specifically what she's holding in the hands, the pasham, the ankusham, the bow, and the flowery arrows that she's holding. So this is more specifically a description of Lalita Mahatripura Sundari or Kamakshi Devi. So it's most appropriate for her. If you are worshiping another form like Durga Devi or Lakshmi Devi, Saraswati Devi, Kali Devi, you would want to choose a Dhyanashloka that's a little bit more specific to those forms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, sure. All right, so next we're going to switch into the Abhisheka mantras. And the reason why I'm not going through the Devi Puja more completely is because we already went over a lot of the typical mantras for that in the Ganapati Puja mantra class. So I don't want to repeat that part. And also normally you all know we would be chanting Sri Suktam as part of Devi Puja, but I also don't want to get into that one. I just want to do the more sort of specific mantras that are harder to find a class for. So in terms of the Abhisheka mantras, these are not specific to Devi Puja. These are used in any kind of puja. So typically for Abhishekam, we're doing Panchamrita Snanam, which is like bathing with 5 specific auspicious things, Panchamritam. So that's done for any deity. And so a lot of the time, if it's like a Shiva puja, or if we're doing the puja in the evening time, we would actually use the Pancha Brahma mantras, Sadhyojatam Prapadyami, and all those. Those are commonly used for Shiva or a male form of God, or even Devi in the evening time as well. That's considered like a Shiva time. But you can also use these mantras. There's no issue with that. So this is one version. And so before we get into chanting them, I just want to share my screen and show something, if I can find out where to do that. Okay, share screen. Okay. So this is something that's just showing where these Abhisheka mantras have come from, because this is how I'll be teaching them. So I wanted to show this kind of information. So what you'll notice is that most of these mantras are coming from Taittiriya Samhita. That's the name of the text. And this is just one part of Krishna Yajurveda. Krishna Yajurveda has Taittiriya Samhita, Taittiriya Aranyakam, Taittiriya Brahmana. And so different mantras may be coming from different parts of those texts. But here, most of these I've taken from Taittiriya Samhita. So like Apo Hishta and so on. And then again, Taittiriya Samhita Apyaya Susamedute. This Dadhikravno comes from Taittiriya Samhita, but I believe it also happens in Udagashanti. So it may have a slightly different form there, but I've taken this from Taittiriya Samhita. So again, same thing. Same thing from Madhuvata Rudayate. And then if you remember this little section, Madhu, 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 this is actually coming from Taittiriya Aranyakam. So we'll come back to this one. So again, Taittiriya Samhita. And then what we commonly do in the temple is this Gayatri mantra. And this is based on Taittiriya Aranyakam. And even this little section, Subramhanyogam, Subramhanyogam, Subramhanyom, also occurs specifically in Taittiriya Aranyakam. And then finally, what we often will chant is Hamsa Gayatri mantra, which I have not come across in the Vedas. That just means I haven't found it. So I don't have a location for that, but I know it occurs in Mahanyasam. So definitely it comes from there. So coming back to this one, Swadhup Pavasva Divyaya Janmane. So this one, I don't think it occurs in Krishna Yajurveda. I could be wrong. It could be that I haven't found it, but I have not found it anywhere. I've not found any reference to that. So what I've taken this from is Rigveda, because definitely it occurs there. And this is the reference for that. So the way that Rigveda is chanted, I don't want to talk too much about that, but it is different from Yajurveda style chanting. And not only that, there are some different styles of chanting Rigveda, which we'll talk about more when we come to the Ganapati Homa mantras, because there are a number of mantras there that come from Rigveda specifically. So here, just for anybody who is familiar, I'm going to be chanting this in the style of Shrungeri Rigvediya Parta. The other style is Kanchi, or the other main style is Kanchi, Rigveda Parta, but that's a little bit different. That's more different than the Shrungeri style. So because you're chanting everything in the style already of Krishna Yajurveda, I felt it would be too strange to suddenly switch to a rather different style. So I just wanted to give that little explanation before we start. Okay. Okay, I see that Dan has his hand up. What's your question?
Oh, I was just gonna say, if we're more comfortable with the Pancha Brahma so far, is it all right to use them in the morning?
Sure,
Okay.
sure, no problem. And to be honest, I often do that myself because I like them so much. And also before I had sort of learned the pronunciation of these mantras, because it was very hard to locate them. It was hard to track them down in the Vedas to find the really accurate spelling and swaras and everything. So for a while I did Pancha Brahma mantras because those I definitely know. Those are very familiar. And I like them a lot. I really enjoy chanting those. So no problem at all. All right, so who would like to repeat the lines? I can't see everyone, and very few people have their video on.
I'm happy to do it. I'm just waiting to give everyone a chance.
Oh, well, that's very nice of you, but I think they're not going to take that chance today. All right, so we'll start with you and hopefully others will join in later. Okay, so we'll start with the first one. Apohishta.
Apohishta.
One more time.
Apohishta.
Good. Just notice that the shta is a mahaprana. So it's the retroflex shta, but it's mahaprana. So it comes out like shta, shta.
Apohishta. Apohishta.
Good. Mayo bhuvas.
Mayo bhuvas. Mayo bhuvas.
Good. Apohishta mayo bhuvas.
Apohishta mayo bhuvas. Apohishta mayo bhuvas.
Good. Tana urje.
Dana urje. Dana urje.
Dadhatana.
Dadhatana. Dadhatana.
Tana urje dadhatana.
Dana urje dadhatana. Dana urje dadhatana.
Good. Let's try the whole line. Apohishta mayo bhuvas tana urje dadhatana.
Apohishta mayo bhuvas dana urje dadhatana. Apohishta mayo bhuvas dana urje dadhatana.
Very good. I'm not sure if there was a like a breaking of the stream of the Zoom, but it sounded like the O was a little bit short. That might have just been because of internet problems. So just make sure it's apohishta, apohishta. Okay, let's do the next line. Maheranaya.
Maheranaya. Maheranaya.
Chakshase.
Chakshase. Chakshase.
Maheranaya chakshase.
Maheranaya chakshase. Maheranaya chakshase.
Good. All right, so I'm going to chant just the first line 4 times and then the second line 4 times so that everyone can get some practice and hear it repeatedly. Apohishta mayo bhuvastana urje tadhatana. Apohishta mayo bhuvastana urje dadhatana. Apohishta mayo bhuvastana urje tadhatana. Apohishta mayo bhuvastana urje tadhatana. Maheranaya chakshase. Maheranaya chakshase. Maheranaya chakshase. Maheranaya chakshase. Okay, so we can go on. So Dan, you can repeat these lines too. Yova Shivatamo.
Yova Shivatamo. Yova Shivatamo.
Very close. You're pronouncing the she a little bit too long. That's a hrasva. So it's more like Shivatamo.
Yova Shivatamo. Yova Shivatamo.
Getting closer. So you were correct. There's holding on the ish in Vashivatamo. So Yo Vashivatamo.
Yova Shivatamo. Yova Shivatamo.
That's exactly it. Rasastasya.
Rasastasya. Rasastasya.
Yo Vashivatamo rasastasya.
Yova Shivatamo rasastasya. Yova Shivatamo rasastasya.
Good. The last time was very good. You corrected your swara mistake. So that's very good. Now the last part. Bhajayate hanaha.
Bhajayate hanaha. Bhajayate hanaha.
Good. Now the whole line. Yo Vashivatamo rasastasya bhajayate hanaha.
Yova Shivatamo rasastasya bhajayate hanaha. Yova Shivatamo rasastasya bhajayate hanaha.
It's very close. Only thing is the bhajaya. Bhajaya is all on the middle swara. You were going a little bit down. So that's the only thing. Bhajayate hanaha.
Bhajayate hanaha.
That's it. Okay, now let's do the next line. Ushatiriva.
Ushatiriva. Ushatiriva. Ushatiriva.
Mataraha.
Mataraha. Mataraha.
Ushatiriva mataraha.
Ushatiriva mataraha. Ushatiriva mataraha.
Very good. So now I'm going to go back and by myself, I'll chant the first line of the mantra and then the second line 4 times as practice. Yo Vashivatamo rasastasya bhajayate hanaha. 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 Ushatiriva mataraha. Ushatiriva mataraha. Ushatiriva mataraha. Ushatiriva mataraha. Okay, so now we'll go on to the last mantra. So Dan, you can repeat these lines. Tasma arangamama.
Tasma arangamama. Tasma arangamama.
Good. So here, notice that we have tasma ending in dirgha, and then the next word begins with another vowel. So that's why you heard a small gap in between those words. And also aram ends in anuswara. So because the ga is coming after, we have aranga, arangamama. Okay, so that's why you hear that. Voyasyakshayaya.
Voyasyakshayaya. Voyasyakshayaya.
And so here we have some holding. Yes, yak, yes, yak, yes, yakshayaya. Okay. Jinvata.
Jinvata. Jinvata.
Good. On the second time, I heard the Mahaprana very clearly. Ta, Jinvata. Okay, so let's try the whole thing, that section from Vo. Vo yasyakshayaya jinvata.
Voyasyakshayaya jinvata. Voyasyakshayaya jinvata.
Good. Now the whole line. Tasma arangamama voyasyakshayaya jinvata.
Tasma arangamama voyasyakshayaya jinvata. Tasma arangamama voyasyakshayaya jinvata.
Very good. The swara's got a little bit out on arangamama, but very, very close. Tasma arangamama.
Tasma arangamama.
That's it. Okay, so let's do the next line. Apojanayatha.
Apojanayata. Apojanayata.
Very close. If you look at the word janayata, all of the as are actually hrasva until the very end, the dirgha at the end. So all the other a's or vowels are hrasva. So it should be janayata, okay? So, but in apo, that a and o are both long. So it starts out apo and then janayata. So let's try that one more time. I'll chant it and then you can chant 2 times. Apojanayatha.
Apojanayatha. Apojanayatha.
Good, exactly right. Chanaha.
Chanaha. Chanaha.
Apojanayatha chanaha.
Apojanayatha chanaha. Apojanayatha chanaha.
Very good. Now I'll chant each line myself 4 times as practice. Tasma arangamama voyasyakshayaya jinvata. Tasma arangamamavo yasya kshayaya jinvatha tasma arangamamavo yasya kshayaya jinvatha tasma arangamamavo yasya kshayaya jinvatha apo janayatha janaha apo janayatha janaha apo janayatha janaha apo janayatha janaha. Okay, and then the final line is just a part of the puja, not part of the Veda mantras themselves, but we just say Shuddhodakena snapayami, Shuddhodakena snapayami, or you might hear Shuddhodaka snanam samarpayami, Shuddhodaka snanam samarpayami. One just means I am bathing with pure water, and the other means I'm offering a bath of pure water. Okay, so same basic meaning. Okay, so that was very nice, Dan. Thanks for repeating the lines. Would anyone else like to repeat the lines for the next ones? Sharisha Amma? Okay. So this Apo Hishta, like these three mantras here, these are actually also chanted when we do Sadyojata mantras. So that first part is common. But then this next part, starting with Apyayasva, that's where it would change or be different. Okay. Apyayasva.
Apyayasva. Apyayasva.
Sametute.
Sametute. Sametute.
Apyayasva sametute.
Apyayasva sametute. Apyayasva sametute.
Good. So everyone should notice the holding on ip. Apya. Apya. Okay, so don't forget the holding. It's a little confusing because the a is separated from the pyaya, but there should also be holding there because it's a dirgha followed by a conjunct. Vishvatasoma.
Vishvatasoma. Vishvatasoma.
Vrashniyam.
Vrashniyam. Vrashniyam.
Vishvatasoma Vrashniyam.
Vishvatasoma Vrashniyam. Vishvatasoma Vrashniyam.
Good. And everyone notice in Vrashniyam, the shna is the retroflex like Vishnu. Vrashni. Vrashni. Okay, so those are retroflex sounds. Let's try the whole line together. Apyayasva sametute vishvatasoma vrashniyam.
Apyayasva sametute vishvatasoma vrashniyam. Apyayasva sametute vishvatasoma vrashniyam.
Pronunciation is good, but the swaras have gotten a little bit lost because of chanting the whole line together. So let's look at those a little bit more. So in sametute, Sametu te.
Sametu te.
Good. Apyayasva sametu te.
Apyayasva sametu te. Apyayasva sametu te.
So here, the sva in pyayasva, sva goes down. So the way you're chanting it is as the middle, and then you're
Okay.
going down on sa. But actually the sva is down, and then sa in sametu is the middle. Okay, so you can just practice that. Apyayasva sametu.
Apyayasva sametu. Apyayasva sametu.
That's
that
good. It's getting
sounds better?
closer. Yeah, it's getting better. Sametu te vishvatas.
Sametu te vishvatas. Sametu te vishvatas.
Good. Sametu te vishvatas somavrashniyam.
Sametu te vishvatas somavrashniyam. Sametu te vishvatas somavrashniyam.
Good. Apyayasva sametu te vishvatas somavrashniyam.
Apyayasva sametu te vishvatas somavrashniyam. Apyayasva sametu te vishvatas somavrashniyam.
Very, very close.
I think, yeah.
I think you're starting to hear the difference. Just needs a little more practice. So one thing that I do is if there's a section where the swaras are challenging, I slow it down, because sometimes when you're going fast, it's like the vocal cords have trouble getting the right note out when the syllable is going by so quickly. So by slowing it down and really focusing on getting the note out and out clearly, it can help in those areas. So you can just practice that sametu te area. When you were doing it by itself, it was perfect. Only when it's the full line, then something is getting correct. Okay, so now the next line. Bhavavajasya.
Bhavavajasya. Bhavavajasya.
Good. Sangathe.
Sanghate. Sanghate.
Bhavavajasya sangathe.
Bhavavajasya sanghate. Bhavavajasya sanghate.
Very good. Swaras were perfect. One thing in Sangate, just to watch out for, is the only Mahaprana is Te. So the Ga was also sounding a little bit like a Mahaprana, but it's only the regular Ga sound. Okay, so just watch for that. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll chant each line 4 times on my own as a practice. Apyayasva sametu te vishpatas soma vrishniyam. 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 Bhavavajasya sangate. Bhavavajasya sangate. Bhavavajasya sangate. Bhavavajasya sangate. And then again, the final line is just the line from the puja, not a Veda mantra, where we say kshirena snapayami or kshira snanam samarpayami, which just means we're bathing with milk, kshiram. One small thing I want to mention about the first set of mantras that we did. If you notice, you can see that the first line is like about twice as long as the third line. So if you were to count up the syllables, you would see that those are all in Gayatri Chandas. Gayatri, so they're like Gayatri mantras essentially, even though they don't say like Dhimahi and so on. But they are in Gayatri Chandas, which is a pretty common Chandas in the Vedas, because it's very auspicious. So sometimes I believe in Sandhya Vandanam, in certain types of Sandhya Vandanam, certain traditions, these shlokas will be there and they may be broken up slightly. So the first line of each mantra, the one that's twice as long, is actually two parts or two padas of 8 syllables each. So sometimes those can be broken up like 8 and 8. So you may hear people even in the temple or some other people, if they are used to chanting these as part of Sandhya Vandanam, they may break up the lines because I've seen in Sandhya Vandanam texts, those lines broken up slightly. But because this is the way they are in the Taittiriya Samhita, that's why I've written them the way they are here with the first line of 16 syllables all together, because that's how I can verify the correct swaras. Because when you break apart lines, break apart the padas, the swaras may change according to the rules. They won't be exactly the same. So that's why I've kept these together, because that's what I can verify in the Vedic texts. Okay. All right, so we can go on to the next one. So Shirisha Amma, you can also chant these lines. So this is the Dikravno. Dadhikravno.
Dadikravno. Dadikravno.
Good. And everyone noticed the Mahaprana in Dhi, the Dhi, which comes out like Dadhikravno. Akarisham.
Akarisham. Akarisham.
So here, notice that Akarisham has no swara marks, which means that the whole thing is just the middle note. Akarisham.
Akarisham. Akarisham.
Good. Dadhikravno akarisham.
Dadikravno akarisham. Dadikravno akarisham.
Very good pronunciation. One thing that's happening is that the akarisham You have a very melodious voice, so somehow you're tending to create melodies. So there's a tendency to sort of make something into a song almost. It's very natural. We hear that a lot. But it's important to look at the text and make sure that we're not adding any different swaras where we don't have swaras noted in the text. So also you did the gap very well. So dadhikravno is ending in the dirgha O sound. And then the next word is starting with a vowel. So there's a gap there. But just watch out for akarisham. That's all the middle flat swara. Okay, let's go on.
I think I need to unlearn first before learning this.
Well, that's the thing, you know, like we've all seen these mantras without any swara marks probably for a long time. So we're used to chanting them in a certain way. And, you know, which was whatever we, you know, could think of, which is natural. Like if you don't learn them in a formal way with the text that's very accurate, then it's very hard. So now it's true. There is unlearning to do now. So I think what I'll do is probably I'll make some recordings of these so that, because they're also hard to find on YouTube or something. Like if you want to learn Durga Suktam, you just type in Chalakere Brothers Durga Suktam and you can find it and you can like play it on repeat. You can hear it, you know, continuously. You can learn it very easily that way. But these mantras are not common. They're mainly used in pujas. And whenever there's a puja, like there's so much going on. There's like people talking. There's just, you know, you're distracted by one thing or another. And it's not the place to learn is when there's a puja going on with a lot of people there. So that's why these are, you know, especially challenging. And that's why I really wanted to include them in this. But I think if I do some recordings, then that's something that people can just try listening to repeatedly until it feels natural. You have to replace the older version with the newer version until the newer one feels just as natural as the older one.
That will be really helpful, Amma, the recording.
Okay, all right, good, I'll do that. All right, let's try the next part of the line. Jishnorashvasya
Jishnorashvasya Jishnorashvasya
Vajinaha
Vajinaha Vajinaha
Jishnorashvasya Vajinaha
Jishnorashvasya Vajinaha Jishnorashvasya Vajinaha.
Good. Let's try the whole line. Dadhikravarno akarishan jishnorashvasya vajinaha.
Dadikravno akarisham jishnorashvasya vajinaha. Dadikravno akarisham jishnorashvasya vajinaha.
Very close, getting there. But definitely the swaras are going to take a little bit of time to replace with the new ones.
Okay.
So just keep those in mind. Also, one small thing in akarisham, it ends in anuswara. So we can pronounce it like that when we're just doing that one word, but notice the j that comes after, jishno. So typically when we chant, we'll pronounce that like akarishan jishno. Shan jishno. We'll change it to the nasal na that comes with ja. Okay. All right, let's try the next line. Surabhino.
Surabhino. Surabhino.
Surabhino.
Surabhino. Surabhino.
Mukha karat.
Mukha karat. Mukha karat.
Surabhino mukha karat.
Surabhino mukha karat. Surabhino mukha karat.
Very close. In mukha, it's actually middle, then upper. Mukha karat.
Mukha karat. Mukha karat.
Good. Surabhino mukha karat.
Surabhino mukha karat. Surabhino mukha karat.
It's very close, but still the mukha is coming like lower and then middle. Okay.
Okay.
So you can just focus on the mukha when you practice. And now the next part. Prana ayugamshi.
Prana ayugamshi. Prana ayugamshi.
Tarishat.
Tarishat. Tarishat.
Prana ayugamshi tarishat.
Prana ayugamshi tarishat. Prana ayugamshi tarishat.
Perfect. Let's try the whole line together. Surabhino mukha karat. Prana ayugamshi tarishat.
Surabhino mukha karat. Prana ayugamshi tarishat. Surabhino mukha karat. Prana ayugamshi tarishat.
Pronunciation is very good. Just swaras. When you come to the whole line, that's when it gets even harder to keep all of the swaras together. Okay, so it'll just take some practice. And then we have the Dadana Snapayami as the puja part, saying that we're offering yogurt or curds. So now what I'll do is I'll chant each line of this last one 4 times as practice by myself. Dadhikravarno akarishan jishnorashpasya vajinaha. Dadhikravarno akarishan jishnorashpasya vajinaha. Dadhikravarno akarishan jishnorashpasya vajinaha. Dadhikravarno akarishan jishnorashpasya vajinaha. Surabhino mukha karat. Prana ayugamshi tarishat. 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 All right, I think the last thing I'll end the class with is I'll just chant from the beginning of the Abhisheka mantras one time through to the end of where we did, the way we would do if it were a puja. Apohishtamayo bhuvastana urche dadhatana maheranaya chakshase yo vashivatamorasastasya bhajayate hanaha ushatiriva mataraha tasma arangamama yasya kshayaya jinvatha apo janayatha janaha shuddhodakena snapayami apyayasva sametu te vishvatas soma vrishniyam bhavavajasya sangathe kshirena snapayami dadhikrano akarishan jishnorashvasya vajinaha surabhino mukhakarat prana ayu kumshitarishat dadhna snapayami. Okay, so I think we'll end there. Any questions on what we've done today?
Yes, Ektama.
Yes, Amma?
See, when you said Surabhino Mukha, did you say karat or if? Mukhaf. Did you say mukhaf?
No, there's no visarga there. So it's mukha and then karat. Karat. Mukha karat.
Thank you.
Mukha karat.
Mukha karat.
Anything else? Dan has his hand up. Go ahead.
Okay. So when we have one syllable which ends with raswa, and then the next syllable also begins with dirgha vowel, is there does it, and it's the same vowel, is it like one continuous sound, like kara prana ayukum, that one I'm wondering. After, you understand the question?
I think I do. So that's a good question. I think you're referring to like the na ends in a hrasva vowel, and then the next word begins with a vowel.
Yes.
Right? So in this case, because of the way the words are written, you pronounce them separately. So there's no like, you don't need a gap. Like if the na were a dirgha instead of hrasva, then we would have a gap there. But because it's hrasva, there's not a gap. And because of the way the words are written separately like that, we don't combine them. Like it's not like a sandhi where next to becomes It's not like that situation because that's the way it's been written here. So we're trying to pronounce it just the way it's written. Sometimes words do get combined, but then it'll be written that way in the text. So here we can follow the text clearly. Prana ayu, na a, prana ayu. Does that sound clear?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else from today or previous classes?
Ma, I have another question.
Okay.
Okay, where is it? Okay. In the first, I think it is rasas tasya pajaya, like dehanaha. So the dehanaha. So is it a dirgham or a hrasvam?
Which one? The A sound?
Day, yeah, the day sound.
Okay, so that's a dirgha sound.
That's
so in the vowels, like the 16 vowels, The dirghas are like a, I, U, A, I, O, Ao, Rum, Lum. So more are dirgha. So the short ones are like a, I, U, Lu, Ru. And and aha are kind of different cases. But that's how it is. So A is always dirgha, O is always dirgha. Same thing for I and Ao. I know in Tamil and Telugu, they have a short E sound and a short O sound. But in Sanskrit, we don't have those vowels. Those aren't there. So anytime you see the A or O, those are dirgha.
So like in im. So okay, those are all okay.
Yeah. So, and the dirghas are pronounced about 2 times as long as the Rahasva.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting because technically the way you get an ah sound is 1 a plus 1 a equals ah. It's almost like a math equation. 1 a plus 1 I produces a. So a kara contains akara combined with ikara. So it's almost like the length of time that you would spend on a hrasva, if you combine with another hrasva, the time has to also equal. So 1 matra in hrasva plus 1 matra in hrasva equals 2 matras in the dirgha. So it's almost like a math equation. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Dan has another question.
No, I don't know why that hand is there.
Oh, it's still up. Okay.
Yeah.
There must be a way to put your hand down. That's all right. Anything else for today?
Thank you. It was good, very helpful.
Okay, sure.
Very nice.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do these Abhisheka mantras for a long time because it took me a long time to learn them and get used to them. So I thought it might be good.
Yes, it goes like a rumble when everybody chants. There's no.
Yeah,
you
it's
cannot
really,
make out.
it's impossible. It's impossible.
I know. That's what I was telling, whatever we are chanting at the temple, we should learn it instead of.
Yeah, and then the other thing is when the Abhishekam's happening, it's always so magical and mesmerizing that I'm focusing more on just watching the beautiful Abhishekam. So at that time, it's even harder to focus on the chanting part. But it's lovely.
It was good. Thank you.
All right, so thanks everyone.
Thank
We'll
you,
continue. There's a lot more, so we'll continue with this for the next class as well.
Super.
Thank you.
All right, so thanks for joining and see you next time.
Thank you.